Okay. Well, hello, everyone. It's wonderful to have you. Welcome, greetings, etc., to our second webinar. The Path to Brighter Future starts with reading today. We're so excited about our topic, and we're even more excited about our discussants who are with us today. For those of you who have not participated in our sessions in the past, we are bringing several 45-minute programs designed to bring education thought leaders from a wide variety of interest areas on a wide variety of issues to each of you. We have had so much interest from the field, and we're excited to just bring this diverse topic, this diverse audience, such an interesting topic as we are today. Before we get started, I just want to extend a special thank you to our staff at MetaMetrics. They've managed all of the registrations, logistics, and led the preparation for today's topic. And thanks also to Beable for being a gracious partner with MetaMetrics. It's been wonderful to host these with you, and we really appreciate your service as experts as well. So now just a quick reminder of our protocol if you did not join us for the first meeting, and that is this. Please feel free to post any of your questions in the Q&A at any time during today's webinar. We'll collect these questions and present them during a Q&A session toward the end. Or if we don't have time or don't get to your question, we'll get back to you. Also, a recording of today's webinar, as well as our last webinar, will be available for you to view. We'll send that out. We'll also have it available on MetaMetrics YouTube channel. My name is Jillian Balow, and I serve as the Chief Strategy Officer at MetaMetrics. And again, it's super exciting to be with you. For those of you who maybe I have not met before, I served as the state school. Wait, hang on. State superintendent in two states, Virginia and Wyoming, for about 9 years. And before that, I was in policy, and before that, I was a teacher for 10 years. It's super exciting to bring all of that into a different look at education at MetaMetrics, and it's wonderful to work with so many partners that I relied on as a state education chief and a school leader, and even as a teacher. So with that, today I do a lot of thinking about college and career readiness as a parent, as an educator, and as a leader. And what we know today is that jobs require greater literacy skills than ever before, among other things. We know all of the other skills. Today, we're really focused on literacy. And jobs of the future are going to require dynamic and flexible skill sets that are based on a really strong foundation of reading proficiency. Yet we all know the jarring statistics around our national testing and that literacy continues to be on the decline. So as that alarming gap grows, we now have the tools to enable school districts and school systems to accelerate literacy gains, sometimes by 5 times the expected annual growth across all students and all populations. And today, our discussants are going to bring real-world application to this topic using connected learning to support educators and inspire individual student growth. So with that, let's get started. I am super pleased to introduce a newer-ish colleague that I've had the opportunity to work with over the last few months, Susan Gertler, who serves as the Chief Academic Officer at Beable and is also just a wonderful thought leader in this space. So Susan, I'm going to turn it over to you. This is going to be very conversational. I'd love for you to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your subject matter expertise.
Sure. So excited to be here with you. And Jillian, thank you so much, not only for the introduction, but for moderating today and for being such a great partner. We've really enjoyed, I know the session we had last week with you was wonderful, and we found very enlightening, and the conversation that happened was truly powerful in terms of in partnering together. My name is Susan Gertler, and as Jillian said, I'm the Chief Academic Officer with Beable. I've been in the edtech industry for over 25 years, starting with using advanced technology to really make a difference. And the first company that Saki Dodelson and I had together and co-founded was Achieve 3000, making sure we could bring differentiated instruction to every learner. And the technology that allowed us to do that is really the powerful mechanism through which we're able to change student lives. And when we started Beable, we had a new dream in mind, always connected to literacy, because literacy is really at the heart of all opportunity. So when we started Beable, it was all about career connected literacy, making sure that we're able to help students understand not only what their literacy levels are, but what the career opportunities are and how literacy demands impact career opportunities. And so we wanted to bring Beable to the forefront and help all students understand that connection so that they would create their own mission. Their mission would be all about who they are, where their starting point is, where they want to go from a literacy perspective, and how it is that we can create a path and use technology to create a path. And it's interesting, Jillian, you talked about the challenge that kids face today, that their literacy levels are lower than ever before, and the demands of different careers, particularly blue collar careers, are higher than ever before. And a large part of that is technology, right? What has happened in the fourth industrial revolution and how it is that technology has really changed what career demands are. And I believe that it's technology that is going to help us overcome those gaps. So I'm extremely excited to be here with you today to talk about MetaMetrics, the partnership with Beable, and also, of course, our educator in the field who will help us to really bring it all to life. So it's great to be here with you.
Wonderful, thank you. And next, I would love to introduce my colleague Matt Spindler from MetaMetrics, who does all things product, but is also just a wonderful thought leader in this space and a real innovator. Matt, over to you to talk a little bit about your subject matter expertise and introduce yourself also.
Thank you, Jillian. I am Midwestern enough that getting introduced like that still flusters me. But I not quite 25 years in the ed tech space, but I'm at 23 years in the ed tech space, just getting behind you, Susan. And I got my start really in the large scale assessment world. I've spent a lot of my time helping organizations understand kind of the big picture outcomes of their educational programs. Spent quite a few years working with states on summative programs, but then really in the last 5 years, I've pivoted and had opportunities to start working in the what 5 years ago was kind of this like newly growing space of the workforce readiness space, and really helping organizations and individuals start answering the question of like, what do I need to be learning this for? And what do I need to learn next to kind of get to my goals? Really helping people to start chart that path from 12th grade. We got some expectations from where you are, but also then like, that's not the end of it. There's still learning that needs to happen. There are still paths that need to be chosen, work that needs to be put in, kind of no matter what your target is. And that's really something at this point in my career really reinvigorated my love for assessment tools, which sounds very nerdy, but like coupling assessments with the right context. I spent a lot of time in my career building these assessments that ended up being something of a post-mortem and helped people look backwards at what has happened. But I'm really excited right now, and especially through this partnership with Beable, to be delivering, using these tools to help people look forward, find motivation for what they want to be doing next. And I'll unpack that a little bit more as I get into it. But thank you for having me here. I'm really excited.
Thanks, Matt. And now we get to turn to our resident expert teacher who has real-time teaching happening in real time. And so thanks so much for joining us, Shea. We really appreciate you taking time from your busy days. You're closing up a school year and continuing to work with students in joining us today and talking with us a little bit. Would you take a couple of moments to just introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about what you do, and then I want to go back to the implementation that each of you have addressed so far.
Thank you so much. I just want to say, whew, I'm so glad I'm here. There has been a huge storm in our city and floods everywhere, power outages. So I'm so glad that I'm here, and that is real life, isn't it? So I'm just so glad to be here. I've been teaching for almost 20 years. I've taught 7th grade, pre-K, kindergarten, currently teaching 5th grade, English, and I've been introduced to Beable. It's our 3rd year of implementation, and it's just blown me away. So I'm excited to share any tips and tricks. All questions are welcome, because we're boots on the ground, living the daily life, using this tool to get us through, and not just through, but to be successful. So I'm excited to be here, and I appreciate you guys. And I'm catching my breath right now.
Oh,
Well, it's so interesting to just think about. All three of you mentioned implementation yet, and all of us know what that means, but we're not level set on what that means for us in this context, in this space of this topic of career connected learning. Matt, I'm going to pick on you for a minute because we talk sometimes about shoes and thermometers at MetaMetrics, which seems weird. But I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about implementation from that vantage point, and then I want to move on to the others.
yeah. So if you don't, I will take a second. And one of the things I love doing in product, I find helps me be successful, just providing some context to kind of shape the rest of the conversation. So I am also very guilty of using acronyms or obscure terms without defining them. And so I will try to define these. So the tools that I'm going to put a little words into Susan's mouth. Susan has been using the term. There's a couple of languages that we are putting together to kind of help contextualize learning for students and give them a language to talk about their progress. And I wanted to unpack one of those languages that has gone into this offering tool set is the Lexile Framework. Now, you may be relatively familiar. The Lexile Framework has been around for about 30 plus years, but I wanted to give a quick overview of what it is. And when we talk about it, it's a scale that provides an assessment of the complexity of a text. So we know a piece of literature, a piece of prose has a level of complexity based on a number of different factors. And we know that text is complex at a level. We've created a scale, it goes from 0 to 2000. And so we put a piece of text on that scale, let's say 700. Now, we also know that students have an ability to access text at different levels. We think of that as their ability to read or ability to decode the text. But students have a reading ability and we have the tools to assess that reading ability, and we put that reading ability on that same scale. And so now all of a sudden you can have those two things talk to each other and inform what next steps mean. So a student that has a reading ability of, say, 700, that means that they would be able to read with 75 to 100% accuracy and gain a piece of text that is at that same level. And so all of a sudden you can start using these two components to dial in instruction. If you want a student to be able to read at a comfortable level, you have a way of knowing what is a comfortable book for that student to read to shore up their reading ability. Now, we all know increasing reading ability is done by reading. And it is done specifically by reading books that are a little bit challenging, but not too challenging, that it's unreasonable for the student or they bounce off of it or they become frustrated. And so that's really one of the best ways that this tool is used, is to say, all right, if a student is at, in our picture here, 770, now let's find a book that's at, say, 850. That book is going to be a little challenging for that student. They'll still be able to get most of what's going on in it, but it's going to be introducing new vocab, new sentence structures that they're not as familiar with, and it's going to be challenging them and increasing their reading ability. So that's one of the languages that's in play. You can go to the next slide, Gabby. One of the cool things that we have partnered with Beable on is building an assessment tool to kind of help weave in a really high impact, low time sink way, sitting for testing time, that's never the actual value that's being brought. So we worked with Beable to develop a CAT test using our reading assessment content that quickly gets a student to kind of a placement understanding, and then built shorter diagnostic components in there so that as a student's reading ability increases, we're able to quickly reset where we understand them to be, and then target the next piece of instruction at the appropriate level for the student as they go through. That's the Lexile component. The next piece that I wanted to share, I think Gabby already did the next slide, so you can skip to. Go to the next one, please, is setting targets. So we have the ability, we understand how to understand the complexity of a piece of text. We took that tool set and that ability and we started looking at careers, and we said, we want to be able to help people understand where they need to be, not just at the end of 12th grade or not just for college readiness, but for all of these different things they could do. And in our research, we found that there were different levels of reading ability needed for different careers. And so MetaMetrics has done the research, and we've indexed over 600 careers, and we assessed all of the materials associated with the start of that career. And we said, okay, if you're going to be able to read these materials, take the assessments in order to start this career, this is where you have to be. And all of a sudden, combining all of that together provides context for students for where they want to be going, so that they have an understanding of, if I am right here and I want to be here eventually, therefore, the work that I'm putting in is leading up to that goal. And adding that context is something that we believe helps students understand why they need to put in the effort that they're doing. You hear that a lot for students. My kids ask that, when am I going to use this outside of school? And this was really our effort to providing that context for them. I've already talked longer than I wanted to because I get excited about these things. I'll hand it over to Susan because there's the next set of the implementation is on her side for the other piece of the language. And so I wanted to make sure she had a chance to talk about that.
Sure, thanks, Matt. Do you mind showing this slide 2? I want to talk about the Beable platform and how, Matt was talking about how we've infused Lexile into the platform. The second language that we have infused is the language of RIASEC. Now, RIASEC is a career interest inventory. It was developed by Dr. John Holland in the late 50s, and it's all about helping people identify their work-related interests and also be able to look at a work environment and understand what that work environment is going to be like. So in some ways, there's a little bit of matching that's going on there as well, right? The idea of, what your interests are and what the work environment looks like, what is the right place for me to be? And so because we're using the latest technology, we're able to infuse and allow these two languages to interplay with one another. So if you go to the next slide, I want to just describe briefly how the system works. What is the framework that drives the system? Get to know me, find my why, create my path. Get to know me is every student can set up a learner record. And in that learner record, we learn everything we can about a kid, right? What are your personal interests, your work-related interests? What do you see yourself doing? What are you interested in doing? What are some of your goals and your dreams? Where do you see yourself living? Where do you want to, what places do you want to visit? And what languages do you speak? Who are you as an individual person? And one of the things that kids do is they also take this RIASEC inventory. And the end result of the RIASEC inventory is a 3-letter code that typifies what this student is like. RIASEC stands for realistic, investigative, artistic, social, enterprising, and conventional. And so every person is some combination of those 6 traits. And so we give students the language to talk about themselves. So they can look at their learner record and they have the language of RIASEC, they have the language of Lexile, and they can talk about themselves. And if they happen to be a struggling reader, it doesn't mean that they only have to talk about the fact that they're a struggling reader, because there's so much other information about who this individual is and what do they uniquely bring to the table and to the classroom and to their family and ultimately to their community. So kids get to know themselves, but every stakeholder gets to know them as well, right? Teachers, family members can have these career-connected conversations with kids. Find My Why is all about the journey of exploration, right? We know kids' RIASEC code, we know their Lexile level, but we know their RIASEC code. They can explore different careers. Matt was saying that we know the RIASEC. He said that you know the Lexile level of all of those careers, but you also know the RIASEC of all those careers because the federal ONET database tells us what the RIASEC is for all of those careers. And so kids can go on this journey to explore careers that tie into their RIASEC code. Not because we're trying to typecast them and say, oh, you can only do careers that match to your interests, but rather to say there are so many jobs out there that you have never heard of that match to your interests. And let us just tell you about them so you can try them out, so you can explore them, so you can evaluate and reflect on, do you think it's a good fit or not? And if not, awesome, go to the next one and try the next one because there are so many opportunities out there. So in that journey of exploration, kids find their why. And all of a sudden, once they know exactly where they are from a Lexile perspective and they know where the career is that they are going to and the Lexile demands of that career, all of a sudden it becomes their personal mission of, this is the mission of me. I know me, I know what I'm interested in, I know where I want to go. I can do this. Not because my teacher said, not because my family said, or my parents said, because I want to, because this is my mission. And then Create My Path is the technology. We can create a unique pathway for every kid. How many reading sessions do you need? Well, that depends on what your gaps are. What extra scaffolds do you need? What grade level content should you be reading? What level of content should you be reading? If we differentiate content to 10 levels, which version is right for you? And what's right for you today may not be what's right for you in 2 months because you will have accelerated in 2 months. So the technology will always ensure that you're working at your precise level. And then making sure that every kid has that pathway and can see the potential of where they're going. So I'm going to stop there and let Shea talk about what's really happening in the classroom.
Oh, wow. That everything you were saying, my brain was going, yep, we've done that. Yes, we've done this activity and this activity and that. And so it's just so exciting to hear you explain it, Susan, and also know that it is a real live thing happening with these kids. And it's just so exciting and invigorating as a teacher to have a tool that not only helps with their Lexile, but you're seeing social and emotional growth. You're seeing these kids become motivated and see options that were never on the table before. So I know that they said they were going to jump to the slides on parent and student engagement. So I'll let them pull those up. That way it kind of gives me direction because I've got so many things I want to say. I probably need a little direction on that. But just to piggyback on what she was saying, the RIASEC, with the Lexile and the RIASEC, for me, that was the marriage. That was the beautiful rainbow connection for me as a teacher to see these students be excited about what is a Lexile. You know, even when they're seniors, it's not necessarily important to them, but to show them why it's important because they want to have this job over here and there's so many other job options available. And these job options are available because they have natural talents within them that have nothing to do with how well you can read yet. If you're a realistic thinker, if you are an investigative thinker, if you're artistic, it's because it's who you are. And it's celebrating kids in the sense of who they are within themselves, not their abilities yet, not how they identify themselves or their socioeconomic categories. It's just who they are. And it's beautiful. And the kids are accepted. And that's why the RIASEC is so exciting because then they go, oh, you see me. And then these are my options. Oh, and I got to read that well to do these things. Okay, I'll listen now. And that, as a teacher, that's the kind of support we need. So as you can see on this first slide right here, this is just some raw data from this past year. Like I said, this is our 3rd year implementing Beable. And if you see in the top right, this is our start of our year. Now we had a little bit of a late start this year. We started the end of August, and then usually we start at the beginning of August. And it shows you over the whole course of the year, 4 different times, and how our babies are growing. And I know it's very cliche to say it, but the proof is in the pudding. And there's your proof. These kids not only grew, not just the bottom ones, but the middle ones, which often get left behind because you're so focused on the bottom ones. And then even our top kids, the middle kids moved to the top. And by the end of the year, we had one that was still in the red, and that was it. And that student started so low. If he had a couple more months of school, he would have gotten up to the next level. But he worked and grew over 200 Lexile points no matter what. The bottom graph also shows our overall Lexile. Our expected Lexile growth was about 74 points. These kids blew it out of the water. So we have awards every year, and we have you met your individual yearly growth expectation? Because I love how Beable separates that. Because for me, if I already have a high Lexile, I may only be expected to grow 55 points. Whereas my friend over here has a medium one and they need to grow 75 points. So it meets me where I'm at and doesn't make me feel like I'm not growing, or vice versa. And all of our students this year, I'm proud to say, met their growth and above, and they all got that award. And I was so proud to see all the kids do that. So on the next slide, I think it is, these are some individual kids. When Susan was talking about the individual why and them choosing their careers, I chose a kind of a top kid and a lower kid. In the top, we have a kid named Isaac, and he took his RIASEC, and he is a RIS, and he chose these top careers. It was chemistry teacher, athletic trainer, and some kind of computer engineer. And those were his choices. And then if you notice over here, he started at a 965 Lexile level. Every month, these power up challenges, when we told the kids, guys, you are not the level of your weekly performance. Because for example, if you possibly take a blue article academic test that week, and maybe it was a bad week or a bad day, and you made a 65, that has nothing to do with your growth. It's not a week by week basis. It's your training and practicing for these power up challenge. What a great name for it, for an assessment, a power up, especially in today's world with gaming. So, all right, guys, it's a power up day. Everyone take it calm and cool, collected, sit down, do your best. All you have to do is beat your last month's score against yourself. And these kids rose to the challenge. They were so excited to show their teachers, look, I grew 5 points. I grew 10 points. And sometimes they would not grow at all that month. And we were still high-fiving because it was like, it's all right, guys. Next month is the next power up challenge. And the kids bought into their own growth, which as teachers, we all know when there's buy-in, student buy-in, that's half the battle is won. And these kids did that. The kid below, this is one of my students who was below grade level, and he really struggled in the beginning of the school year. And he bought into the Beable program. And as you can see, he started at a 680, which is below our grade level. He made it up to an 850, and 830 was where our 5th grade level started. And he was beyond proud of himself. He said, Miss Lindblatt, look, I finally reached our goal. And it just brings tears to my eyes because here's this fella, and he's chosen these other careers, a talent director, video game designer, a trainer, and he is just as proud of himself as the young man who's now at an 1160, which is above grade level. And so those were 2 fantastic triumphs as a teacher. I don't know if we want to go to the next one as far as family engagement. Well, school-wide participation too. You need to have student engagement and student buy-in. You need to have teacher buy-in, teacher engagement, school-wide, and you need to have your stakeholder engagement, and that means parents. So our school this year, we decided to jump on the RIASEC choo-choo train, whoop, whoop. And so everybody in the entire school took the RIASEC survey. Custodians, our fantastic cafeteria workers, the office staff, teachers, students, everyone did it. And then we were able to ask each of the grade levels to make a display for their own grade level. And then this one right here on the screen is our whole school display. It's right there on the way into the cafeteria. And when these kids walk by, and every child's name is represented, their strongest letter was represented on these posters. And they would walk by and they go, look, there's my name. Oh, look, there's your name. We have the same letter. That's so cool. And so now you're having students connect, even staff and faculty connecting, not based on our pay, not based on if you're in 1st grade, 2nd grade, not based on anything else except what you are naturally talented with. And that's being a realistic thinker or a conventional thinker. And those conversations were just beautiful. I think on the next slide, it shows some of our teachers and what they did with their classrooms. So outside the classrooms, as grade levels, everyone put together some type of representation of their RIASEC codes. Now, kindergarten and 1st grade, they aren't doing the traditional Beable program yet, but there is a paper version of that and a younger child's version of the RIASEC, so that way they could be a part of it. And they just focused on their strongest letter. They didn't give them all 3 letters, but the kids loved it. And especially those who had older siblings, They were like, my big sister's in 4th grade and we both have an A. That's why I like her. And it's conversations like that that just were beautiful and so organic in our school. So I definitely encourage that. And then finally, our buy-in for the stakeholders as far as parents. Guys, this was a game changer. We are asking our students to do 2 blue articles per week, maybe more based on their individual needs. And how do we get the help from home? These parents are so used to, we change different programs in the school system like any other state does, right? All the time. But this one, we're asking parents to help us out. And so we had the parents come in, we divided it up. We had a 2nd grade night for just 2nd graders because they're the very first ones trying Beable. Then we had a 3rd through 5th grade family night, and we invited the parents to come in. We explained what the Beable program was. We explained the difference, what a Lexile level was. We explained what the RIASEC survey was. And then we said, hey, parents, guess what? You get to do it today too. So we gave them their own child's RIASEC code. Then the parents each got to take their survey and find out what their code was. Meanwhile, as the parents are taking their survey, we're walking around as teachers saying, okay, what do you think your mom's going to have? And they're saying, I think my mom is definitely going to have an A just like me because we love to color together or we love to do art together. My dad's not going to have an A because he doesn't have any artistic, nothing in his body, but he's probably going to have an R because he builds lots of stuff. And so the parents are hearing their children predicting some of their own talents. And then when the parents got the results, the kids were ecstatic. The parents were blown away. It was a game changer. And they started saying, can my older child do this? Can my spouse do this at home? And we said, you know what, make it a Christmas tradition. Everyone comes over for Christmas and everyone does their RIASEC. And it just opened up conversation. And all of a sudden the parents saw the career choices, because sometimes you are a doctor because your dad was a doctor, but maybe that's not your passion. And all of a sudden it opened up parents' eyes to, oh, my child wants to be this because these are their talents. That's a total different mindset for me. So we're hopefully changing parents and families from within to find out who their children are and who they are as well. And the parents, as soon as we saw this data right here on the screen, this was the year before we did our parent Beable nights. And you can see we still had great growth. After our Beable family nights and the data below, do you see how it jumped by getting our parents involved? And the parents bought into the program. They bought into the understanding of what Lexile means and how to support teachers. The growth was tremendous. So definitely student buy-in, school buy-in, parent buy-in, and it's just a beautiful combination. And I'm going to stop there and give someone else the stage for a moment.
Well, Shea, I want to come back to you on this and ask just another question about how you're scaling this in other schools, in your district, out of your district, et cetera. But I also want to just spend a little bit of time with Susan and Matt to talk about this concept of positive impact. You're doing a brilliant job, Shea, and thank you. But we don't want pockets of excellence, right? We want that to be scalable. So I'd love to just hear from Matt and Susan about how we might use some of the research or the aggregated data or efficacy concepts and work to make sure that we're able to scale this at a bigger level to have a bigger positive impact. Matthew, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I got super, when we were initially talking through this, I got super excited about this component about the parent teacher night. So I want to fly off in a number of different directions, but like specifically, one of the things that research has shown is that the number one director for students that helps students understand what paths are available to them are parents. Siblings, I think, comes next. Teachers fall lower than you think they would in that situation. They're still important, but the people that have the biggest impact on what a student thinks they can do and what things a student considers to be possibilities are your parents and your siblings, kind of charting the path in front of you, and kind of those are the people that kids trust the most. And then that coupled with, I think, a long-standing struggle in career exploration, which really is, Shea, you mentioned this, students seeing possible pathways that weren't modeled for them. You know what I mean? That everybody kind of had to go discover, oh, these are pathways that are available. That is super important to opening up students' views of themselves and what is possible for themselves. And that sounds, I mean, it is touchy-feely, it is important, but that is materially realized in then internalizing that into motivation. Like you cannot plan for a future you cannot envision. And I think this way of tackling that and opening this up in these conversations in this familial way, I think is really important in opening up additional pathways and additional possible futures for the people that are participating in it. I got really excited about that. Yeah,
I really agree, Matt, with what you were saying about the importance of family members. And one of the things that you mentioned is that teachers fall lower down, right, in their impact on students in terms of careers. And I think a lot of that is because they're not comfortable with the conversations, right? Those career connected conversations are not part of, traditionally not part of the K-12 world.
Yeah.
And what Beable is designed to do is make it part of the K-12 world. Bring the RIASEC language in and make sure all teachers have taken RIASEC and make sure everybody knows what the RIASEC code is. And Shea, you talked about, custodial staff and maybe the culinary staff and maybe the transportation staff. Everybody takes RIASEC and everybody can have that conversation. So do you mind just pulling up slide 5 for a second? Because whether you did it intentionally or didn't do it intentionally, Shea, your school used the highest impact variable to improve learning outcomes. And that is collective teacher efficacy. And really, I can take out the word teacher and it's really just collective efficacy, right? This is Hattie's work and the research on the influences on student outcomes. And you can see collective efficacy has a 1.6 effect size, the highest effect size in terms of having an impact on students and what their outcomes are going to be. And that's what you did, right? Because it was your teachers all worked together to come up. They had a sense of, we can do this. If we all have the same mindset, we can have a tremendous impact on students and they're going to do really well because of it. And that's the mindset that all of you had. And that collective mindset is what drives student performance. And so you then extended it into not just teachers, but everyone within the school environment. And then you extended it to home, right? So you're really creating this high impact bubble where your kids are exploding because of the collective work that your educators are doing. And if you just think like one step further, if you then took it to the community and you made sure that all community members understood what was going on in your district, that every kid knows their RIASEC and every kid can have these conversations and every kid can feel good about themselves and confident, right? I mean, imagine every kid feels confident and every kid feels, I can do anything, I can do this. This is within my power. That's just remarkable work. So.
Well, that's really wonderful. And oh my gosh, this time flew. This was a conversation starter, but I do have just one more question, Shea. Beable is available to all grades. MetaMetrics and our Lexile scales and our quantiles are available to all grades and prior to reading. What have you found? You've taught a lot of grades. What is the best grade to introduce Lexiles and the RIASEC and bringing that together? Is there a best grade or a best age or younger, better? I just love your experience and insight on that.
That's a great question. And I don't think there is a best grade. It's whatever stage they're at, start there. Because the kindergartners, they were just super excited to understand what their RIASEC, and they just want to know their letters, and they believe everything you say, right, in kindergarten. And then you get higher up in the grades, and the fifth graders, when you started showing them the possibilities of other types of jobs, and we did a wax museum this year where the kids, they looked at their RIASEC code, they looked at their jobs, and they were able to do a wax museum. And our entire school came through and they were able to press a button and the kids came to life and they explained their career and the parents were invited as well. And these kids, all of a sudden, they felt the power of their job. They felt the power of responsibility when they were, yeah, right here's one of our sweet boys. He wants to be a pilot. and he wore, we nicknamed him Maverick that day because he looked just like him. He was a pilot. And then this young fellow down below, he wants to be a DNA technical engineer or something. He brought a cell and opened the cell up and starts to show the kids what a cell is. She's an architect. This young lady right here, she wants to be a therapist, and she's showing kids how to use fidgets. And so they chose their own careers. The young man up there, he wants to be a welder. That's one of our CTE careers, and he chose to be a welder. So these kids at all ages, they want to be somebody. They want to have a sense of self. And I think that this gives them that chance. And the older they get, they also want to make sure they're going to make some money, right? Yeah. And not everyone can be a YouTuber. So they want to see, okay, if I want to make money, what do I have to do to get there? And Beable allows you to look at your career and see where can you go for college? Where can you go? How much money can you make? What places need you the most? And what type of characteristics are needed for this type of job? Because it's the soft skills sometimes that are lacking in our older population of students, and they need those soft skills. So to answer your question, it's wherever you are, be there, meet them there, and show them what is their currency. Is their currency imagination? Is it just excitement because they're younger? Is it second grade because now they're starting to read chapter books? Is it a 12th grader who's about to leave the house and needs to earn a paycheck right away? So wherever you are, teachers, just meet your kids there, show them what matters to them, and they will buy into their own success by seeing what you're showing them.
That is as close to a cliffhanger as we can get in a webinar. Thank you, Shea. Thank you also, Matt and Susan. Thanks again to Beable and MetaMetrics. Thank you so much to everyone who joined us today. Again, the recording of this will be available shortly, and we'll send that out, and it'll also be available on MetaMetrics YouTube channel. Thanks so much for joining us. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you all again.